starving families were first given generous rations in the form of 200 grams of cereals and 150 ml of cooking oil. Then their chief minister promised these desperate people, rendered homeless by the Uttarakhand disaster, that they didn't have to worry. They would be given all possible help. Vijay Bahuguna's government announced the relief measures with great pride and fanfare. But just where has all that relief ended up? In dark, damp godowns to rot, turned into putrefying waste, as those who need it the most are left wondering why they aren't getting enough. Some relief, Mr. Chief Minister. The shocking waste in Uttarakhand is going to be our top focus on India Reports. Good evening, I'm Padmaja Joshi.
Good evening, I'm Shiv Aru. Remember, we like to tell you that India Reports is officially now on Twitter. At India Reports is our Twitter handle. If you've got anything to say to Padmaja or me, you can tweet us, give us your suggestions, give us your views on what you thought about the show and what you'd like to see in the shows ahead. I'm Shiv Aru, and these are the top 10 stories first at 10 p.m. tonight.
Abandoned survivors hit back. They've run out of patience with the apathy of the Uttarakhand government. In Rishikesh, women go on the rampage seeking information about their missing relatives.
Is there worse in store for the already battered state? Met Department warns of heavy rains starting this Thursday.
कल से रुक बहुत सीधे साधे मतलब आईपीएस के हिसाब से बहुत ही सीधे साधे इंसान थे और क्या बोलेंगे इट्स अ ग्रेट लॉस फॉर झारखंड.
Fall of gloom at residence of Pakur police superintendent in Jharkhand. He was ambushed and killed by Maoists this afternoon with 4 other cops.
ये जो घटना घटी है निश्चित रूप से राज्य के लिए बेहतर नहीं है. हम काफी सभी लोग इस घटना से शॉक हैं.
Day before the CBI's Ishrat charge sheet, Digvijay Singh takes another shot at Narendra Modi, says encounters with the Gujarat Chief Minister's way of building his image.
The whole idea of the Gujarat police and the then Joint Director IB working together was only to raise the pitch and the leadership of the Gujarat Chief Minister.
Big tussle in government over Jet Etihad deal. Matter referred to cabinet despite Ajit Singh's go-ahead. PMO denies it.
Obviously, all those guys raising those issues are long on politics and short on facts.
CBI files charge sheet in railway cash for post scam. Names Pawan Bansal's secretary and nephew among 8 others. Bansal himself escapes mention for now.
Hawala racket busted outside Mumbai Central Station. Trucks carrying currency notes, gold and diamonds worth at least 100 crores seized after joint raid by NIA and Income Tax Department.
World up in arms against US snooping, but India is so much more understanding. External Affairs Minister gives America an unnecessary clean chit, says it isn't spying, it's just analysis.
Meanwhile, India rejects Snoopgate whistleblower Edward Snowden's request for asylum, says there is no reason to help out the renegade NSA analyst.
Sri Lanka make a strong start in their do-or-die match against India. Indian bowlers falter, fail to contain firebrand Lankan openers.
Further evidence of
We're leading India Reports tonight with rot, the sort of rot that's threatening to kill even those who've survived the floods of Uttarakhand. The sort of rot that runs so deep, it could bring a fresh wave of suffering in the state.
For all the big things the Vijay Bahuguna government said about relief and rescue work in his state, Headlines Today's reporters have found tons of food, medicines, gallons of water simply wasting away and rotting across the state, kept with criminal negligence away from those who need it to continue living.
Mountains of relief material, but none for the misery-struck hills of Uttarakhand. Shocking but true, these heaps of biscuits, breads and soft drinks are not reaching the victims of the flood fury. Godowns are flooded with sacks of rotting potatoes and vegetables, loaves of bread, dirty cotton rolls, medicines, none of it reaching those who need it the most, those who are struggling to survive without the basic essentials that are now clogging drains. And this rot has been exposed at not just one or two locations. Headlines Today's correspondents fanned out across Uttarakhand to do a status check at relief camps. And they were shocked to discover utter mismanagement and complete apathy on display. 17 days after the tragedy, even as people clamor for food, drinking water and basic first aid, this is the situation on the ground. If this is not a mockery in the name of relief work, then what is? First they were hit by Himalayan tsunami, now they suffer due to the government's Himalayan apathy, utter mismanagement. Survivors hungry but helpless as they are forced to throw away food.
ना राशन मिला ना कुछ भी नहीं दिया इन्होंने हमको।
पहले सरकार को हमारी खाने पीने की समस्या को देखना चाहिए। जब जितना बचा कुछ अनाज लोगों के भंडार में था, लोगों ने आज तक खा लिया है, लेकिन अब उनके पास ऐसा आ गया है कि मांगने के लिए भी गांव वालों के पास वो नहीं है।
हम परेशान हैं, हमारे पास राशन नहीं है और मीठा तेल नहीं है जलाने के लिए। राशन अब भूखे मरने लग गए।
ये समझते हैं कि ऐसे तो जानवरों को भी नहीं दिया जा सकता है, ऐसे चीजें यहाँ भेज रहे हैं, इसका हम क्या करें? जो यूजी में नया है हम उसका क्या करें?
These makeshift accommodations have been provided by the Uttarakhand administration. There are no mattresses or even mats, just cold hard stones to sleep on. The tents are not waterproof either. Can we imagine what would happen in case the monsoon fury strikes again?
On the one hand, the godowns of the government are filled with this relief material that is coming in from across the country, and on the other, the contrast is that you saw that people in Joshiara are waiting for some sort of help to them. No water, nothing has reached them so far.
But officials and the administration find nothing much amiss. The Chief Minister and his administrative officials claim that the relief material has been dispatched for all locations and is on its way to those who need it.
खाद्य सामग्री भेजी गई है, उसको कैसे वितरण किया जाए, कैसे उस सुदूरवर्ती क्षेत्रों में, दुर्गम स्थानों पर, दूर क्षेत्रों में पहुंचाने का काम भी एक बहुत बड़ा हमारे सामने लक्ष्य भी है और चुनौती भी है। कैसे पहुंचाया जाए, इसके लिए हमने प्रभारियों की भी नियुक्तियां की हैं।
I do understand that, okay, fine, you do have a safety issue in mind, but at the same time, you have to arrange that things reach the needy in time and at, the correct time.
Is Vijay Bahuguna really in control of the relief management work? Can he handle the crisis? Is this how he plans to rebuild Uttarakhand? Mr. Chief Minister, merely making announcements of relief measures is not enough. Seeing them through is what your state requires. Can you deliver? Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
In fact, joining us live from Uttarakhand is Headlines Today's Rohit Singh, who along with his colleague Ankit Tyagi has filed that report that you just saw. Also with us on the phone line is Agriculture Minister in the Uttarakhand Cabinet, Harak Singh Rawat, Shilpi Arora, spokesperson of the Uttarakhand Congress, who is also with us. But I want to go across first to the Minister. Harak Singh Rawat ji, ये जो स्टोरी अभी हमें मिली है, उसके हिसाब से उत्तरकाशी में गोडाउन के अंदर कार्टन भर भर के सामान पड़ा हुआ है, खाना पड़ा हुआ है, वो गीला हो रहा है, बर्बाद हो रहा है, पर जोशियारा में कई सैकड़ों लोग हैं जिनको अभी तक मिला नहीं है। रिलीफ मटेरियल पूरे देश से जा रहा है, लोगों तक क्यों नहीं पहुंच रहा है?
देखिए, जो देश से विभिन्न सामाजिक संगठनों ने राशन या खाद्य सामग्री भिजवाई है, वो देखिए पर्वतीय क्षेत्र में, क्योंकि फर्स्ट जो फेज था हमारा, वो तो उसमें निश्चित रूप से खाद्य सामग्री हमको चाहिए था, बिस्किट चाहिए था, पानी चाहिए था। लेकिन अब सेकंड फेज में जो हमारे स्थानीय निवासी हैं, लोकल जो हमारे लोग हैं जो पीड़ित हैं, उनको अब हमने एक लिस्ट बनाई है। हमने पूरे देश के लोगों से निवेदन किया है कि बर्तन चाहिए, जिनके घर उजड़ गए हैं उनको बर्तन चाहिए, हमको चावल चाहिए, आटा
रावत साहब,
चाहिए।
मैं सवाल दूसरा पूछ रही हूँ। लिस्ट अब आपके पास 18 दिन हो चुके हैं, लिस्ट अभी तक तैयार हो गई होगी, लोगों तक सामान क्यों नहीं पहुंच रहा है?
देखिए, निश्चित रूप से हम पहुंचा रहे हैं। पिछले 2 दिन पहले हम लोगों का पहली प्राथमिकता थी, जो जीवित लोग हैं, जो लोग फंसे हुए हैं, उनको निकालना हमारी प्राथमिकता थी। लेकिन कल और आज 2 दिनों से हम लगातार जहाँ रास्ते टूट गए हैं वहाँ एयर ड्रॉपिंग करा रहे हैं, कहीं खच्चरों से हम लोग भिजवा रहे हैं। और अब हमने हमारी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने कैबिनेट में निर्णय लिया है कि 15 किलो चावल, 15 किलो आटा, 10 लीटर केरोसिन, 5 किलो
But that doesn't seem to be reflecting on the ground. Rawat Sahab, just stay with us for a moment. Rohit Singh is with us from Guptkashi. He's one of 2 reporters who've been traveling across and actually filming these go-downs where tons of relief material simply rotting. Rohit, what do you have to say? You're on the ground. You've got the minister who's listening to everything you're saying. Rohit, tell him firsthand the kind of wastage that you're seeing out there.
Shiv, absolutely. There's a lot of apathy as far as the state government is concerned, because on Saturday we had filed a report that the kind of relief that is being distributed, it was less of a relief and looked more like arms, because 200 grams of rice, 100 grams of pulses that was being distributed. But suddenly we come to know that there's a lot of stock that is there in the warehouses, but it's all getting rotten. So it's really shocking that why it is getting rotten. There are several gunny bags in Guptkashi we saw today lying on the streets. It's raining throughout day to day. It's all getting rotten, and after 2 or 3 days, if that is supplied to the common man or the beneficiaries, obviously they are going to get angry, because that is not fit for human consumption, and it is fit for only cattle can have that food. So obviously the people are angry. In Guptkashi at several places, hundreds and hundreds of gunny bags are lying under the open sky, and because the weather is bad, it's raining throughout the day, these grains are getting rotten.
Alright, I also want to get in a word from Shilpi Arora. She's the spokesperson for the Uttarakhand Congress. Just a few hours ago, there was an announcement made by Ambika Soni at a well-televised press conference along with the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Shilpi Arora, where it was said that now in a systematic fashion, relief material will be given to the survivors. But the images that we've got from across Uttarakhand belie every single claim that was made by Ms. Soni along with the Chief Minister.
Making best of their efforts, but accessibility is an issue. The roads connectivity is not restored yet. So we are facing a lot of problems. And why you were talking about the small packets and all, because those had to be airdropped. When we airdrop the material, it has to be in small packets. We cannot throw big gunny bags. Number 2, through your channel, I would request all the donors not to send perishable material. You know, we got some reports about some potatoes and all. So we have to send now the pulses, wheat, flour and utensils, as Mr. Harit Singh Rawat said, and the blankets and the other things we are working on it. We have full-fledged arrangement for that, and Congress Seva Dal is working 24/7. And
I think Shilpi Arora, the fact is these pictures tell add a very terrifying layer to the whole story. Apart from the fact that the state was so, unprepared for the disaster itself, even in the aftermath of this disaster, as people have been rescued, the armed forces have picked up all these people and brought them to safety, it appears that the state still can't get its act together and get this relief material to the people. Not all of it is perishable material. There are medicines, there's cotton wool, there are there are other non-perishable items that aren't being reached to people, mineral water that's simply rotting away in go-downs, and there are people who genuinely need this. Harak Singh Rawat, Rohit Singh, Shilpi Arora, thanks for joining us on this story for now, but we will keep a track of where this relief material is going, because obviously it isn't reaching the people who need it the most.
Absolutely, but in fact there's another angle to this entire story, because it's a story that sent shockwaves through an already shaken disaster management establishment. Last night, headlines today revealed a stunningly accurate ISRO weather alert published a good 16 hours before disaster struck Uttarakhand. 12 hours later, they've suspiciously labeled the alert as purely experimental.
Amazing. Clearly, in the dock for negligence and criminal inefficiency, the NDMA has predictably turned to subterfuge. The question is, even if this alert was experimental, and that's what they've labeled it now as, it remains the most accurate prediction of what lay ahead in Uttarakhand. And by ignoring it, the NDMA perhaps has even more blood on its hands.
Stunning U-turn by India's topmost space research agency. Within 24 hours of headlines today, special broadcast highlighting ISRO's explosive and accurate forecast of Uttarakhand cloudburst, the agency altered its own report, terming it experimental.
On the 1st of July, that's when Headlines Today had broadcast this special report on the very precise warning given by ISRO. This is what we saw on their website. We've got a screen grab. As you can see, there is no disclaimer seen on the 1st of July when the ISRO website had got a warning of the cloudburst that was to take place in Uttarakhand on the 16th of June. Very precise locations were given in that warning. You can see that at that time there was no unofficial tag to the forecast. The forecast time was also mentioned. It said 16th June, 7:30 GMT. Also, if you see that the number of areas that had been mapped by this warning were very precise. The areas that would be affected by that cloud burst were mapped very carefully. Again, no experimental tag was attached at that time on the ISRO website. Then just in a matter of few hours, after Headlines Today had broadcast its special report, see what happened. On the 2nd of July, suddenly you have a big, bold red sentence added to the website which says, this is an experimental run, not an operational broadcast. So the ISRO's own warning has suddenly been watered down on its website.
But can ISRO also disown or downplay these satellite images taken over a 24-hour period from Kalpana 1 on the 16th of June, hours before the clouds rained deaths on the hills? It were images like these that formed the backbone of its deadly forecast.
NDMA has been under fire for its lackadaisical preparation and response to the Uttarakhand tragedy. But instead of addressing its own gaping holes, it has been out blaming the others, including the Met Department. However, it has failed to answer the crucial question as to why it wasn't able to procure life-saving data from other agencies like ISRO.
This was not a document that was made available by ISRO to anyone on the 16th. This is a post-event picture that was the document that was made available on the net. It is only the IMD which gives out the weather bulletins and warnings.
NDMA is not the only agency in denial. Everybody in the government has been united in the blame game as they downplay the various warnings they ignored.
वार्निंग पूरे प्रदेश के लिए थी और बारिश पूरे प्रदेश में हुई और 14 तारीख की जो वार्निंग थी कि जिसमें 16 के पश्चात अगले 48 घंटों में भारी से अधिक भारी की बारिश की जो चेतावनी थी वो पूरे प्रदेश के लिए थी और पूरे प्रदेश में बारिश हुई भी।
हमेशा ये कहते हैं कि भारी बारिश होगी, तो भारी बारिश तो पिछले 10 साल में हुए हैं, लेकिन जिस इंटेंसिटी का अभी हुआ है उस टाइप का कोई बहुत खास स्पेशल वार्निंग नहीं था कि नहीं यात्रा रोकने के लिए नहीं कहा था, सिर्फ भारी बारिश की वो थी आह्वान कर।
ISRO's surreptitious move to alter its website has raised several questions. Was it government agencies' elaborate cover-up to hide its own inefficiency? Or was it to expose government's stand that it lacked the technical expertise to predict such a complex phenomena such as cloudburst? ISRO is tight-lipped, perhaps embarrassed by its own flip-flop. With Athir Khan and Kamaljeet Sandhu, this is Mausiki Acharya in Ahmedabad for Headlines Today.
Quick look at what made news across the country. The Supreme Court has turned down West Bengal government's plea to change Panchayat poll dates in view of Ramzan. The plea was turned down on the grounds that the dates were fixed by the Supreme Court based on availability of security forces from the centre and not on the basis of a festival.
what is being seen as the first step in resuming dialogue after the beheading of 2 Indian Army jawans on the LOC in February. External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid met Special Advisor to the Pakistan Prime Minister Sartaj Aziz on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit in Brunei.
An honor killing has been reported from Delhi, where a young man was killed by his girlfriend's family. Sunil's body was dumped in the Yamuna after the murder. A hunt is on for the maternal uncle of the girl.
And it seems there are no lessons learned despite the recent massacre in Jharkhand today. Maoists in a daring daytime attack ambushed a police party in the state, killing 6 policemen, including a superintendent of police.
This comes just a month after the bloodbath in Bastar, where the entire Chhattisgarh Congress leadership was wiped out. Maoists ambushed the convoy of superintendent of police in Pakur. The attack was pre-planned and carried out with precision.
The superintendent of police of Pakur was returning from Dumka in Jharkhand when the Naxals first detonated an explosive, and then when the police cavalcade stopped on the road, they were fired upon after being ambushed. 2 companies of the CRPF were rushed to the spot immediately after. Just a fortnight ago, on the 13th of June, Maoists killed the vice president of Lloyds in Gadchiroli in Maharashtra. On the same day, Maoists hijacked a train in Jamui and killed 3 people.
On the 25th of May, the entire Congress leadership in Chhattisgarh was wiped out in a Maoist ambush. On the 4th of April, the Naxals gunned down 5 cops in Gumla in Jharkhand, and the 22nd of February in Gaya, Bihar, 6 cops were killed in a landmine blast. Just the beginning of this year in Latehar, 7 CRPF men were killed in an encounter with the Maoists. And after the murder of the policeman, the reactions have been quite predictable. The politicians, of course, saying there's an intelligence failure and the state should have done better.
माओ का पूरा क्षेत्र रहा है, कभी ऐसी घटनाएं घटी नहीं। और हालांकि इस संबंध में मैंने कई एक बार प्रशासन को भी इस बात के लिए अवगत कराया था कि वहां चीजें थोड़ी बदल रही हैं। इसको लेकर आप इन सब चीजों पर नजर रखें। ये जो घटना घटी है निश्चित रूप से राज्य के लिए बेहतर नहीं है। हम काफी सभी लोग इस घटना से शॉक हैं।
निश्चित तौर पे ये बड़ा ही जो है दर्दनाक घटना हुई है और अभी हम लोग 30 तारीख को वहाँ हूल दिवस के अवसर पे जो संथाल क्रांति का दिन था, उस दिन हम लोग वहाँ थे, पाकुड़ में भी थे और वो पूरा इलाके में थे और दिन में ये घटना हुई है। इसका मतलब है कि छत्तीसगढ़ की कंटिन्यूटी जो है झारखंड में देखने को नजर आ रहा है।
तो पता चला है बहुत ही दुखद घटना है। हम सब मर्माहत हैं इससे और सब समाज में हिंसा का कोई स्थान नहीं है। स्वाभाविक रूप से जो प्रशासन अभी वहां काम कर रहा है उनको बिल्कुल इस बात पर ध्यान रखना चाहिए और इस तरह की घटनाओं की पुनरावृत्ति न हो, इस बात को इंश्योर करना चाहिए।
इसकी जितनी निंदा की जाए कम है। एसपी समेत काफी लोग मारे गए हैं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी इसकी निंदा करती है और सरकार को आगाह करती है कि वो झारखंड के अंदर जो नक्सल का दबाव है उसको दूर करने के लिए कड़े कदम उठाए।
It isn't often that anyone from Mamata Banerjee's party makes headlines for the right reasons, and in case you were wondering, today isn't any different. A member of the Trinamool Congress has been arrested for assaulting a doctor. Thankfully, he was caught on camera doing so.
And he also dropped names while repeatedly slapping the doctor. Ironically, the doctor had actually offered to help the brute with his ailing father's treatment. Indrajit Kundu has the full report.
First, take a look at these images. Now, let's introduce you to the dramatis personae. This is Trinamool Congress leader Asif Khan. And this man, at the receiving end of his unprovoked attack, is a doctor, Dilnawaz Ahmad. Asif Khan's father was admitted to the hospital where Dilnawaz works. Not satisfied with his father's treatment, Khan vented his anger on this doctor and let loose a barrage of abuses to boot.
হসপিটাল সিজ করে দেবো, আমি ভাঙচুর করব, আমি 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 পলিটিক্যাল, আমি তৃণমূল কংগ্রেস, আমি নেতা আছি, আমি এইসব করতে পারি, আমি ওইসব করতে পারি, আমার এই ক্ষমতা, আমার ওই ক্ষমতা, আমি ওই থানায় চলে যাব, আমি তোমাকে ঢুকিয়ে দেবো। আমার মা বাবাকে গালাগাল করেছে, ঠিক আছে। এবার ডাক্তারদেরকে গালাগাল করেছে।
The medical fraternity in Bengal is livid. Khan was arrested last evening but released on bail. But Mamta's political opponents feel that what happened is only in keeping with the habits of political hooliganism that the TMC has displayed in the past. Even disillusioned TMC members question the direction the party is taking.
Nothing unusual. TMC leaders slapping doctors and then getting away. And this accused, has flouted his political association. He is in fact quite close to the top TMC leadership.
ममता बनर्जी के कार्यकर्ता जगह जगह अवैध वसूली कर रहे हैं, मारपीट कर रहे हैं, सरकारी कर्मचारियों को डरा रहे हैं, धमका रहे हैं। और हाल में जो डॉक्टर को थप्पड़ मारा गया है तृणमूल के कार्यकर्ताओं द्वारा, जो तृणमूल के मंत्रियों मुकुल रॉय और दूसरे तमाम बड़े बड़े नेताओं के बहुत नजदीक रहा है।
He is a noted criminal. It's a politicization of criminals. So you just pick up criminals and you just give them the order to print a visiting card. So you become such and such leader of Trinamool Congress, and showing that visiting card, flaunting that visiting card, you can do anything and everything, and you can get away with everything.
Prashashan always said, this is a sajano ghatona. This is not okay. तो क्या होगा? इसीलिए तो वो लोग तो always बढ़ेगा.
Sources tell Headlines today that Asif Khan wields considerable clout within the Trinamool Congress thanks to his closeness, especially to leaders like Mukul Roy. But will Mamata give them the license to run riot because of whatever perceived utility they have? Considering the image crisis that Trinamool is already going through, such episodes are the last thing that the party really wants at this time.
With Indrajit Kundu in Kolkata, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Will the Jet Etihad deal go through, or is it dead in the water? Serious divisions between the Prime Minister's office and the Civil Aviation Minister threaten to either delay the 2,000 crore rupee airline venture or shoot its tires before takeoff.
The PMO is moving with extreme caution as a series of red flags are raised on the deal. But Ajit Singh is pushing hard for what he believes will be an elixir for a floundering civil aviation market in the country. Ashish Mehrishi has the story. The Jet Etihad takeoff could be delayed or even aborted. While Civil Aviation Minister Ajit Singh is pushing for the deal, citing FDI inflows and market dynamics, the Prime Minister's office is exercising extreme caution. Having burnt its fingers in the 2G spectrum scam and Colgate, South Block is taking no chances. The latest simply adds to the red flags raised by various government agencies. SEBI, the Foreign Investment Promotion Board and Competition Commission of India have raised various objections against the deal. In fact, FIPB clearance is what's holding the deal back at this time.
They should have woken up in the beginning itself when the whole thing was going on for months together. If the security of my country is involved in any kind of these deals, the Prime Minister is within his right to take the cabinet and the country into confidence.
But I want the deal to be scrapped. If the deal is not scrapped, because it will ruin our domestic airline industry. We will all become, we would outsource our entire airline industry to Abu Dhabi. Should we want that?
So we would expect the government to consider all the possible angles and give a serious thought to all these issues before taking any final decision.
Those guys raising those issues are long on politics and short on facts.
Former Defence Minister Jaswant Singh has in fact termed the deal a curious coincidence, being announced as it did on the same day the government cleared higher seat entitlement for Etihad. Even the head of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Civil Aviation, Sitaram Yechuri, has expressed his reservations on the deal. Ajit Singh, the Civil Aviation Minister, had defended the deal, citing major FDI inflows and the needs of the aviation industry itself. He has rubbished security concerns, saying Etihad has been flying into India for years.
PM has basically raised the queries raised by other people. And so he wants to address them, so he has asked us to tell us, because concerned ministries only can tell.
So this will come up before the cabinet, I'm told, tomorrow?
I don't think it will come up tomorrow. No, nothing has been fixed. That date has been fixed yet.
The Prime Minister office meanwhile has clarified that there are no differences with the Ministry of Aviation on the issue. It says clearances is a routine matter. But the fact remains that though Ajit Singh has steamrolled the opposition objection, but the Prime Minister office is ensuring that in the future more skeletons do not tumble out. With Javed Ansari, this is Ashish Maharishi reporting for Headlines Today.
The Prime Minister's office has gone on the defensive on the Etihad bilateral deal, with opposition and other airlines raising objections to the fourfold increase in seats. PMO has deflected blame to 4 top ministers in the cabinet instead.
In a note accessed by Headlines Today, the Prime Minister's office has said the approval to hike Etihad's weekly seat entitlement by 40,000 seats to 53,000 seats was given by a panel of 4 ministers on the 22nd of April this year. The panel comprised Finance Minister P. Chidambaram, External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid, the then Commerce Minister Anand Sharma, and Civil Aviation Minister Ajit Singh. The panel was constituted after Ajit Singh sought to override concerns of the IMG and pushed the deal through.
Now, the PMO said it was aware of various reasons against implementing the deal. Some airlines and private airports were against the higher entitlement to Etihad. The PMO was also informed that the deal had the power to make Abu Dhabi the hub of westbound flights from India.
Importantly, the deal would in fact make Etihad the de facto national airline of India. Air India already trails behind Etihad in the number of passengers flown out of India. Also, the 30,000 crore rupees of taxpayers' money, your money, allocated for Air India's bailout would effectively be going into the trash can.
As far bilaterals is concerned, that is very good for the civil aviation sector. That's very good for passengers. And I believe because the larger ramifications of having a good working arrangement with Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, that means UAE, that's good for the country also.
Staying with aviation, could this be the airline that does what Air Deccan could not? AirAsia chief Tony Fernandes is promising to make flying cheaper in India than ever before.
The new low-cost carrier's boss has a very welcome war cry before his airline begins burning fuel. Flying isn't elite anymore. Millions of potential passengers hope he's right.
This man is promising to do what Captain Gopinath couldn't, that is, make flying affordable for the Aam Aadmi. In India, to seek security clearances for his budget carrier, AirAsia's boss wasn't pulling his punches.
Flying is not elite anymore.
Well, I think this is a different type of enterprise that Mr. Fernandes is bringing, and hopefully spread the use of air travel across India.
So what does Tony Fernandes have up his sleeve that the Indian budget carriers don't? For one, AirAsia will keep strictly away from larger airports, especially Delhi and Mumbai, that charge heavily. Also, passengers will be charged extra for baggage. The airline will also bank heavily on fast turnaround time. Finally, it won't have tie-ups with full-fare airlines that it says will eat into profits. AirAsia's boss's confidence isn't deterred by failure of Indian airlines like Kingfisher.
We feel that we are able to have the right cost environment to be able to stimulate the market. I think the key message is what we're trying to say is flying is not elite anymore. What AirAsia has done, moving people from 200,000 11 years ago to now 44 million. Every common man in Southeast Asia can now fly.
AirAsia could herald the return of low-fare flying for the Aam Aadmi. Its model has already found huge success in Malaysia over the last 12 years, and it seems it can repeat the feat in India. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Political interference in the police is as old as the police itself. But when dirty favoritism and unwarranted nose-poking takes its toll on the morale of a service, it's plain dangerous, especially in a state like Uttar Pradesh.
Mulayam Singh Yadav has, in one fell swoop, angered an entire batch of policemen by promoting out of turn 43 cops who've been part of his inner ring, his executive security. Those out there actually fighting crime are wondering what they're working so hard for.
It is the perk of serving Mulayam Singh Yadav. 43 cops who were part of the personal security ring of the former Chief Minister have been given out-of-turn promotions. This has been revealed after an RTI query by activist Anup Kaushik. The officers who were promoted were deployed in December last year, 9 months after Akhilesh became Chief Minister.
इन्होंने प्रमोट किए हैं आउट ऑफ टर्न, उसकी जो लिस्ट हमने देखी, उस लिस्ट में वो 43 के 43 पुलिसकर्मी माननीय मुलायम सिंह यादव जी की व्यक्तिगत सुरक्षा में तैनात थे और उन्होंने कोई भी ऐसा कार्य नहीं किया था जिससे कि समझा जाए कि उन्होंने कोई विशिष्ट कार्य ऐसा किया है जान पे जोखिम में डाल करके और उनको आउट ऑफ टर्न प्रमोशन दिया जाता।
While Mulayam openly plays favorites, many are deserving have been sidelined. Across Uttar Pradesh, 40 such cops have been fighting a battle to get what is rightfully theirs. All of them have taken on dreaded dacoits and criminals, many a times risking their lives in the line of duty. What they are being subjected to instead is a legal battle against government apathy.
पुलिस वालों को इसलिए दिए कि 3/2/94 का एक शासनादेश है जिसमें साफ-साफ कि जिन पुलिस कर्मियों ने अपने जान को जोखिम में डाल अदब साहस का प्रदर्शन किया है, वो पुलिसकर्मी they shall be entitled to get out of turn promotion.
While the present government is clearly flouting the norms that have already been laid down, those who have served the system say the Samajwadi Party's decision is indefensible.
VIP duties, according to my lights, should never qualify for out-of-turn promotion, unless until, of course, a person has interposed himself between the VIP and a bullet.
In a state where the crime graph has shot up since the government took charge, this rank favoritism is raising questions on whether it is fair to demotivate your forces at a time when they are most needed to fight crime.
40 men in khaki are fighting for their rights. While they refuse to come in front of the camera, it goes without saying that they feel let down by the system that they serve. Being part of Mulayam's security ring seems to be for now the shortcut to the top for cops in UP. With camera person Salim, this is Amir Haq in Lucknow for Headlines Today.
Biding his time even as we speak in the transit area of the Moscow airport, Snoopgate fugitive Edward Snowden is now officially unwelcome in India. He requested asylum, but the government has said a firm no, a decision that at this point of time is being seen as largely practical, but that's not the worrying news.
Well, what is that the government has this inexplicable soft peddling of the implications of Snoopgate that's got defenders of civil liberties really worried. Despite revelations that the Indian embassy in Washington has been in the NSA's all-seeing sweep, Delhi is happy to play down the implications.
First, it was WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange who made diplomats across the world squirm. Now it's National Security Agency whistleblower Edward Snowden who's making Washington cringe. But his revelations that India was on the list of countries that the United States snooped on does not seem to be a big enough issue for the External Affairs Minister.
Some of the information that they got out of their scrutiny, they were able to use it to prevent serious terrorist attacks in several countries. Now, if that is so, and that is shared with us, we can hardly complain.
Even though the ramifications of what the United States has been doing all along could have compromised India's security interests and foreign policy.
On the other hand, it's a question of asylum. Now, shelter. Now, we surely don't want to have somebody in our midst who is known to be a spy.
What is surprising is that despite the letter from National Security Advisor Shiv Shankar Menon stating that the government should take a strong view of snooping, there has still not been a firm response from the ministry. And this persistent snooping, in fact, is now being termed as cyber scrutiny.
It is because of soft reactions like these that the whistleblower is beginning to feel the heat and is now seeking protection from the men he exposed.
Earlier today, WikiLeaks officially announced that on behalf of Snowden, it had requested close to 20 countries for asylum for the whistleblower. In the case of India, Assange said that it was the moral responsibility, moral obligation of New Delhi to protect Assange since he had exposed what the US was doing against India.
But New Delhi is clear. Snowden is not welcome, and snooping by the United States seems to be no big deal. India is bending over backwards to accommodate America, first underplaying its blatant spying on Indian embassies and then refusing to entertain the man who blew the whistle on Snoopgate. Yet again, India has been stared down. With Atish Srivastav in Delhi and Lavina Tandon in London, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Time to take a quick look at all the top football news that's making the headlines. Former Manchester United assistant manager Mike Phelan says forward Wayne Rooney may want a fresh challenge away from Old Trafford. The 27-year-old reportedly asked to leave the club at the end of the last season, the second such request in just 3 years.
Of the goalkeeper Schwartz, so there you see it, and he bends it round it. Behind Senderos, Fulham stretched.
Brazil midfielder Paulinho's expected £17 million move to Tottenham has moved closer after the player revealed that he would be leaving Corinthians. Last month, Paulinho said that the Spurs had made a bid for him and he would decide his future after the Confederation Cup, where he played a stellar role for Brazil.
Chelsea are willing to use Fernando Torres as part of a deal to sign AC Milan swinger Stefan El Shaarawy. Sources suggest that Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich is keen to bring the Italy international to London this summer.
Also, let's get to the big results from Wimbledon. Top seed Novak Djokovic survived some anxious moments before reaching the last 8 at Wimbledon with a 6-1, 6-4, 7-6 win over Tommy Haas. Djokovic will now face Thomas Berdych in the last 8.
Meanwhile, Berdych overcame Australian Bernard Tomic 7-6, 6-7, 6-4, 6-4. Former Wimbledon finalist Berdych emerged triumphant in a tight encounter which was dominated by serve for the first 2 sets before 7th seed Berdych asserted his authority.
Andy Murray also endured some nervous moments before beating Mikael Yuzny 6-4, 7-6, 6-1. The win meant that the Scot made the last 8 for the 6th year in a row at the All England club and now will face from Spain's Fernando Verdasco.
Meanwhile, playing with his left knee heavily taped following a scary fall in the previous round, Juan Martín del Potro didn't let it slow him down as he beat Andrea Sepi 6-4, 7-6, 6-3 to reach the Wimbledon quarterfinals. Agnieszka Radwanska secured a Wimbledon quarterfinal spot after fighting back to beat Bulgaria's Tsvetana Pironkova 4-6, 6-3, 6-3 in the 4th round. Last year's runner-up, Radwanska will now meet Lina for a place in the semis. Openers Mahela Jayawardene and Upul Taranga have given Sri Lanka a solid start in the crucial one-day against India in Kingston, Jamaica.
Without the injured MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli is leading the country. India won the toss and elected to bowl first, but that decision has backfired for India as the Lankan openers made merry.
Mahela Jayawardene has been at his elegant best and is nearing a well-deserved 100, while Upul Taranga has given him perfect support and has also notched up a fine 50. The Lankans had gone past the 150 run mark without losing any wickets. Sri Lanka have scored the runs at a fast pace without taking too many chances.
The Indian bowling that was so impressive in the Champions Trophy has struggled to fight against the classy Lankan batsmen so far. Alright, with that we've come to the end of today's edition of India Reports. Thanks so much for watching. Also, don't forget, India Reports is now on Twitter. Our handle is very simple. It's the show's name. Looking forward to hearing from you on Twitter. See you tomorrow.